I hinted at what I'd do with another man, and his reaction left me craving forgiveness. Hello, Reddit. My name is Bianca, and I'm 29 years old, and I have ruined my marriage. I wish I could sit here and tell you that I didn't see it coming, that it was sudden, unexpected, unfair, that my husband Parker just woke up one morning out of nowhere and decided to leave, that I didn't deserve it, that it wasn't my fault. But it was, all of it. I made this bed and now I'm drowning in it. Parker is gone. And I don't mean he stormed out in a rage, slammed the door, and left for a couple of days to clear his head. No, this isn't one of those fights where a man just needs some space, where he eventually comes home with tired eyes and a heavy sigh, ready to forgive. No. This time he left for real. I woke up the next morning and he wasn't there. His side of the bed was empty, cold, untouched, like he had never even come back to sleep. I checked the bathroom, the kitchen, the front porch, as if maybe he had just needed some air, but he was nowhere to be found. At first, I thought maybe he had just left early for work. That's what I told myself. That's what I needed to believe. But then, when I walked into the closet, I saw it, the space where his clothes used to be, gone, his suits, his ties, his favorite navy blue hoodie that he always wore when he worked from home, all of it. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't temporary. This was over. He had actually left me. And the worst part? I let him. I let him walk away without so much as a fight. I didn't beg him to stay, didn't fall to my knees and sob, didn't grab his arm and scream that I'd do anything to fix this. Because I've never been the kind of woman who begs. Not even when I should. Not even now. I know what you're all thinking. What did I do? What could possibly be so bad that my own husband, the man who once looked at me like I hung the stars in the sky, could just walk away like I was nothing? Was I a bad wife? Yes. Did I cheat? Yes, more than once. But here's the thing, that's not even why he left. Not when he caught me flirting with other men at parties, brushing off his concern like it was nothing. Not when he saw the way other men looked at me, and worse, the way I let them. Not even when I actually slept with two of them, because I never got caught. And trust me, that's what makes this even worse. I didn't get caught. I told him myself. I sat there, in our living room, with a drink in my hand and a smirk on my lips, and I let the words slip out like they meant nothing, like it was a joke, like I was so damn confident that it wouldn't change a thing. I was wrong, so horribly, disgustingly, painfully wrong, because for 6 years Parker trusted me. For 6 years, he looked past every little thing I did, convinced himself that it wasn't worth fighting over, that he didn't want to be the kind of husband who made a scene, who started screaming matches over things that he could just let go. And maybe that's why I pushed him so far, because no matter what I did, he never left. So I just assumed he would never leave. I just assumed that no matter what I did, he would always be there. Until now. Until I opened my mouth and said the one thing I never should have said. Until I made him question everything. Because it wasn't the betrayal that broke him. It was the fact that, for the first time in 6 years, he looked at me and realized I had never loved him the way he loved me. And now, I can't take it back. I can't call him and tell him it was just a joke, that I didn't mean it, that I was drunk, that I wasn't thinking straight. Because the truth is, I was thinking perfectly straight. I knew exactly what I was saying. I just never thought he'd be the one to walk away. I just never thought he would leave me. I had given myself this false security that I could get away with anything. I was raised by a man who never bent, never apologized, never admitted fault. My father was the kind of man who could walk into a room and own it without saying a word. He didn't ask for respect, he commanded it. People listened when he spoke, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. And I idolized him. From the moment I was old enough to understand the world around me, I knew my father was different. Strong, unshakable, a man who didn't bow to anyone, and he made sure I was the same. I was always the smartest person in the room, not in a way that made me arrogant, at least not at first, but in a way that made everything feel easy. School was effortless. Tests, a joke. I could ace an exam without opening a book. I could watch someone's face for 5 seconds and tell exactly what they were thinking. It was a skill my father noticed early. He used to study people the same way I did. He would sit at the head of the table, his presence too big for the room, his sharp eyes scanning every expression, every nervous tick. He knew what people wanted before they even said it, and when he realized I had that same ability, he nurtured it. He told me that intelligence was power, but intelligence mixed with confidence? That was dangerous. I believed him, but there was something else he believed, something that, looking back, destroyed me. Never apologize. Even when you're wrong, you're right. He said it like it was a fact, like it was a rule the whole world should follow. And I took it as truth. I watched him go years without saying sorry to my mother, even when he was wrong, even when she was crying, even when she begged for an apology that would never come. And the worst part, she always forgave him anyway. It was pathetic to watch. She was the kind of woman who apologized for things that weren't even her fault. If she made dinner too late, if she forgot to iron his shirt, if she spoke too loudly when he was tired, she would apologize. And my father, he never did, because he didn't have to. She loved him enough to forgive without one. I hated her for it. I hated the way she lowered her voice when he was upset, the way she tiptoed around his moods, the way she let him win even when she was right. I hated how she held on to him like she couldn't exist without him, like her entire life revolved around keeping him happy. I swore to myself I would never be like her. If I ever got married, my husband would never see me cry over him. He would never hear me say the words, "I'm sorry," just to keep the peace. He would never get the satisfaction of seeing me break, because I would never break, and I kept that promise. I kept it when I should have apologized. I kept it when I should have begged. I kept it until it was too late. I used to think that refusing to apologize made me strong, but now, sitting here alone, with nothing but regret eating me alive, I realized that strength had nothing to do with it. It wasn't strength. It was fear. Fear of looking weak. Fear of admitting I was wrong. Fear that if I said I'm sorry once, I would become my mother. But the truth is, she wasn't weak. She still has a husband. And I have nothing. Parker was everything my father wasn't. If my father was a storm, Parker was the calm after it, the steady ground beneath shaking earth, the kind of man who made you feel safe without trying, who never needed to raise his voice to be heard, never needed to demand respect because it was already given to him. He had kind eyes, warm hands, a voice that never wavered, even when I was pushing every single button he had. And I should have been terrified of losing him, but instead I was terrified of changing for him. From the very beginning, Parker never tried to control me. He never asked where I was going, who I was with, why I came home late. He never checked my phone or scrolled through my messages when I wasn't looking. He never demanded passwords, never asked me to cut off male friends, never told me how to dress or how to act. And that should have made me love him more. But instead, it made me reckless. Because if he wasn't jealous, possessive, overprotective, then did he even care? I started testing him early in our relationship. At first, it was small things, harmless. A flirtatious smile at a waiter, a comment about how attractive someone else was, a lingering glance at a stranger just to see if he'd notice. And he always noticed, but he never reacted the way I wanted him to. He never got angry, never pulled me aside and demanded to know why I was doing it. He just watched. And when I'd press him about it later, he'd just smile, like he already knew something I didn't, like he was so sure of me, so confident in our relationship, that he never even considered that I might stray. And maybe that's what irritated me the most. Because deep down, I wanted him to fight for me, to feel threatened, to prove that I was something worth protecting. But he never did. So I pushed harder. I started flirting more openly. At dinner parties, I would laugh a little louder at another man's joke, rest my hand on someone's arm for just a second too long, lean in too close, let my perfume linger, let them think, just for a moment, that I was available. And every time Parker caught me, I would laugh it off. I would tell him he was being dramatic, that it was just a joke, that he needed to relax, and he would let it go. Every single time. Because Parker trusted me, because he was a better person than me. But I wanted a reaction. I wanted fireworks. I wanted him to get mad, to finally snap, to prove that I was important enough to fight for. Because love was supposed to be messy, passionate, wild. It wasn't supposed to be this calm, this steady, this easy. So I pushed him further. I started going out more, staying out later than I should, letting men buy me drinks just because I could. And Parker, he never said a word. He never waited up, never sent angry texts demanding to know where I was, never asked me to stop. And that only made me worse. Because if he wasn't trying to stop me, did he even care at all? One night, I stayed out later than usual. It wasn't planned, it wasn't intentional, but when the bar was closing and my friends had all gone home, I found myself alone with another man. He wasn't special, just some guy I had met earlier that evening, the kind of man who knows when a woman is craving attention. I let him touch my arm, let him whisper things that should have made me uncomfortable, let him believe just for a second that he had a chance. And the worst part, I liked it, because Parker had never spoken to me like that, had never looked at me with hunger, with desperation, with something close to possession. So I stayed. And when I finally came home, Parker was already in bed, asleep. Or at least that's what I thought. Because as I was undressing, he spoke. His voice was soft, unreadable. He said he had woken up to check the time and realized how late it was. And that was the first time I saw it. A flicker of something. Not jealousy, not anger, but something close. I almost felt guilty. Almost. But instead of apologizing, I told him he was being ridiculous, that I had just lost track of time, that it wasn't a big deal. And like always, he let it go. But letting go doesn't mean forgetting. And looking back, I think that was the night he started seeing me differently. Not as his wife, not as the woman he trusted, but as someone he couldn't quite figure out anymore. It should have stopped there, but it didn't. Because I had convinced myself that as long as Parker never reacted, as long as he never gave me a reason to stop, I could keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and he would always stay. Because that's what he did. Parker stayed. Through everything. Through every moment of doubt. Through every time I tested him. Through every night I came home later than I should have. Because that's who he was. A good man. A man who didn't believe in controlling his wife. A man who didn't see love as a game. A man who thought trust was enough. And that's why I thought I could get away with it. That's why I thought I could cheat on him and still keep him. I told myself flirting wasn't cheating. That was the first lie. I told myself it was harmless fun, that if Parker wasn't going to react, if he wasn't going to pull me aside and remind me who I belonged to, then there was no harm in entertaining a little attention. But attention is a dangerous thing, because once you start craving it, once you let yourself believe that you deserve it, that it means nothing, it becomes easier and easier to justify. And that's how I met Josh. It was at a corporate retreat. Parker wasn't there, of course, he wasn't there. He trusted me. He had no reason to think twice when I packed my bags and kissed him goodbye, telling him I'd call him every night. And I did, at least for the first 2 nights. Josh was the kind of man who knew exactly what he was doing, the kind who knew how to look at a woman and make her feel like she was the only thing that mattered in the room. He was charming, confident, and just cocky enough to make me want to prove that I wasn't easy to impress. But I was. The first time we spoke, it was nothing. Just casual conversation during lunch, the usual small talk that happens when you're stuck in a place with the same group of people for days. I didn't think anything of it. But then later, at the bar after dinner, I caught him looking at me. Not in the casual way most men look at women. It was deliberate, bold, like he already knew how this was going to end. And I didn't look away. I should have. God, I should have. But I didn't. I let him walk up to me, let him buy me a drink, let the conversation turn into something it had no business becoming. 1 drink turned into 2. Laughter turned into touches. A touch turned into a kiss. A kiss turned into a mistake I could never undo. I don't even remember getting to his hotel room. I don't remember what excuse I gave myself in that moment, what stupid, selfish reasoning I came up with to make myself feel like it was okay. I just remember waking up the next morning with a headache and the sinking realization that I had done something I couldn't take back. Josh was still asleep beside me, the sheets tangled around his waist, his face peaceful in a way that made my stomach churn. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't me. I was reckless, yes. I flirted too much, pushed too many boundaries, played too many games. But this was something else. I sat there frozen, my mind racing through every possible excuse, every possible way I could fix this. But there was no fixing it, so I did the only thing I could do. I got up, got dressed, and walked out. I swore it was a one-time thing. I told myself it was just a mistake, that I would never do it again. That as long as Parker never found out, it was like it never happened. I convinced myself that if I just buried it deep enough, if I pretended hard enough, if I loved him enough, it would all just disappear. And it worked. For a while. But then, months later, it happened again. This time, with someone from my past. A man I once thought I could love. A man who reminded me of who I used to be before Parker. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was just a night out with friends. Parker was working late, and I didn't feel like going home to an empty house, so I went out for drinks instead. And that's where I saw him, Tyler. It had been years. Years. But the moment our eyes met across the bar, it was like nothing had changed. Tyler had been the kind of mistake I used to make before Parker. The kind of man who never gave me peace, but always kept me wanting more. And I don't know if it was the alcohol, or the nostalgia, or the fact that Parker had never made me feel the way Tyler used to, but I let it happen. I let him talk to me. I let him buy me a drink. I let him pull me back into something I had no business being in. And when he kissed me, I didn't stop him. And when he asked me to go home with him, I didn't say no. It was fast, meaningless. A blur of bad decisions made worse by the fact that I didn't even feel guilty this time. Not in the way I should have. Because this time, I let myself believe it was justified. I mean, after the first time, what's one more? Because maybe Parker deserved it for never fighting for me. Maybe if he had ever gotten angry, ever acted like he was afraid of losing me, ever showed even a flicker of jealousy, maybe I wouldn't have done it. Maybe I wouldn't have wanted to prove to myself that I still had the power to make a man lose control. Maybe I wouldn't have needed to see if I could still make a man forget himself over me. But Parker never did. So I did. And still, I never apologized. I went home that night and did what I always did. I kissed my husband. I smiled like nothing had changed. I let him hold me in bed and pretended that my skin wasn't still burning from another man's hands. And for years, he never knew. For years, I played the perfect wife. For years, I convinced myself that what he didn't know wouldn't hurt him. And I thought I was in the clear. I thought my sins were buried. Until one night, I let the truth slip. It started as a joke. It was one of those nights where everything felt easy. Parker and I had been drinking, laughing, talking about nothing and everything at the same time. The kind of conversation that only happens when you're comfortable, when there's no pressure, no expectations, just two people who know each other better than anyone else ever could. And God, I wish I could go back to that moment, to the second before I opened my mouth, to the second before I let my own arrogance, my own stupidity, my own goddamn need to always have the last word destroy everything. Because I didn't see it coming. I didn't know that in a few short minutes, I would be watching my marriage unravel right in front of me. It had started with something harmless, a stupid conversation about hypotheticals. We had been sitting on the couch, Parker's arm draped lazily over my shoulder, my legs stretched out across his lap. The bottle of wine we had been sharing was nearly empty, and I remember swirling the last few drops in my glass, my mind foggy, my body warm from the alcohol. And then Parker, with that teasing smirk he always had when he was messing with me, asked me, "If you weren't married, what's the worst thing you'd do?" And I laughed, not a nervous laugh, not a guilty one, just a stupid, careless laugh. Because in my mind, this was just another game, another one of those moments where I could say something reckless, something provocative, something just on the edge of too far, and Parker, like always, would let it go. So I leaned into it. I let the words roll off my tongue like they meant nothing. I said, "Oh, you don't want to know what I do with another man." I even smiled when I said it, like it was funny, like it wasn't the worst possible thing I could have said. But Parker's face changed. The teasing look was gone. The easy, drunken glow in his eyes had shattered in an instant. And suddenly, it wasn't a game anymore. I should have backtracked. I should have laughed it off. Told him I was joking, that I was just trying to get a rise out of him. But I didn't. Because he asked me something else. He tilted his head, his voice low, steady, unreadable. He asked me if I had ever done anything with another man. And I don't know why I told the truth, but I did. Maybe it was the wine, and maybe it was the months, years of secrets rotting inside me, waiting to be let out. Because secrets don't stay hidden forever. Secrets are like smoke. They will always find their way out. Maybe it was the look in his eyes, the way he wasn't accusing me, wasn't even angry yet, just waiting. And for some godforsaken reason, in that moment, I thought I could control the damage. I thought if I said it calmly, if I didn't cry, if I kept my voice even, it wouldn't be so bad. So I told him, not 1, 2, and the second the words left my mouth, I knew. I had finally done it. I had finally broken him. He didn't react, not the way I expected him to. There was no yelling, no rage, no throwing things, no accusations, no demands for details. He just stared at me, like he was waiting for me to take it back, like he was giving me a chance to fix it before it was too late. But it was already too late, because I didn't take it back. I sat there, my hands gripping my glass so tightly I thought it might shatter, and I waited for him to say something. And when he finally did, all he said was, okay. That was it, just okay. And then he got up. He didn't look at me, didn't touch me, didn't slam the door behind him or give me a parting shot that I could hold on to, that I could turn over in my head 1,000 times, searching for an opening, a way to fix it. He just left. And I didn't stop him, because I still didn't believe he was really leaving. I had pushed him before. I had hurt him before. And every time he stayed. So I let him go. I let him grab his keys, let him walk out into the night, let him disappear. And I sat there, staring at the spot where he had been sitting just moments before, numb. Because this was still just another fight, wasn't it? The next morning he was gone. Not just gone for the night, not just gone to cool off, gone. I woke up alone. His side of the bed was untouched. The air in the house felt wrong, too quiet, too empty, and I knew, even before I went to check the closet, even before I saw the empty hangers, the missing shoes, the gap where his things used to be, even before I found the house key he had left on the kitchen counter. I knew he wasn't coming back, and I still didn't apologize, not that night, not the next morning, not even when I finally understood that he was really truly gone, because I had never apologized for anything before, because I had never admitted I was wrong, because even in that moment, even after I had destroyed the best thing I had ever had, I was still waiting for him to come back first, because that's what he always did, because that's who he was, because that's who I had made him into, the man who always stayed, until now, until I gave him a reason not to. Update. Hi Reddit, it's me again, and it's been 2 months. 2 months of silence, 2 months of emptiness, 2 months in a house that no longer feels like mine. Parker still hasn't come home, and I think for the first time since this all started, I'm finally starting to believe that he never will. The first few days, I told myself that he just needed time. I had convinced myself that he was cooling off, that he just needed space, that eventually he would walk through that door and tell me we could fix this. I told myself that this wasn't permanent, it wasn't over, because Parker didn't leave. Parker stayed, that's who he was, that's who he had always been. But this time, the days stretched into nights, and the nights stretched into something unbearable. I tried calling. The first time it went to voicemail, and I had stared at my phone for minutes, debating whether or not to leave a message. I didn't, because what was I even supposed to say? So I hung up and tried again the next day, and the next, and the next. And every time, the same thing, voicemail. No texts, no calls back, no acknowledgement that I even existed, like I had been erased, like I had never mattered to him at all. And I knew, deep down, that I deserved it. But knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. The house feels wrong. The silence is suffocating, the kind that wraps around me like a second skin. I try to fill it with noise. I leave the TV on, even when I'm not watching it. I play music at night, something soft, something familiar, something to make me feel like I'm not completely alone. I start cooking too much food, making dinner for 2 like I still believe he'll walk through the door and sit across from me like he always used to. And then I throw the leftovers away because I can't stand the sight of them. His favorite mug is still on the kitchen counter, the one he used every morning, the one with the tiny chip on the handle that he always swore he would replace but never did. I don't move it, because the second I do, the second I put it away, it'll mean I've accepted that he's not coming back. And I can't. I won't. Because I don't know how to exist in a world where Parker isn't mine anymore. And that's when I knew. I had to do something I had never done before. I had to apologize. Not in a half-hearted way. Not in a, let's just move past this way. A real apology. something I should have given him years ago, something that might have saved us. I sat down at the kitchen table with a blank sheet of paper in front of me, staring at it for what felt like hours. Because how do you even begin to say sorry when you know it won't fix anything? How do you put into words the weight of your own destruction? But I tried. For the first time in my life, I tried. I told him I was sorry. I told him I was wrong. I told him I hated myself for what I did, that if I could take it all back, I would. I told him I was selfish, reckless, a coward. That I let my own pride, my own arrogance, my own inability to admit fault destroy the best thing that had ever happened to me. That I had tested him over and over again, convinced that he would always stay, because I thought love meant never leaving, never walking away, never choosing yourself over someone else. I told him that I finally understood now, that love isn't about winning, that love isn't about always being right, that love is about trust, about honesty, about knowing when to say, I was wrong. And I should have said it so much sooner. I should have said it the first time he caught me flirting with someone else. I should have said it when I let other men linger too close, whisper too sweetly. I should have said it the first time I cheated, the second time, the morning after I ruined everything. But I never did. Not until now, not until it was too late. I folded the letter and sealed it in an envelope, my hands shaking as I wrote his name across the front. And the next day I drove to his office. I almost turned around. I almost threw the letter away. Because what if he didn't even read it? What if he saw my handwriting and tossed it in the trash without even opening it? What if it didn't matter? But in the end I left it there, on his desk, in plain sight, somewhere he would have to see it. And then I walked out and waited. The next morning, it was gone. I don't know if he read it. I don't know if he crumpled it up, if he ripped it apart, if he skimmed it and felt nothing at all. But it was gone. And for the first time in 2 months, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the first step toward fixing things. Maybe this was the moment where everything turned around. Maybe somehow he would finally call. Maybe he would come home. Maybe he would tell me that we could start over, that we could work through this, that he still loved me enough to try. But Parker still hasn't come home, still hasn't called, still hasn't given me even the smallest sign that this letter changed anything, that it meant anything, that I still mean anything to him. And maybe that's the worst part, not knowing if I lost him the second I told him the truth or if I lost him long before that. Update. Hey Reddit, this may be my last post here. It's been 4 months, 4 months of waiting, 4 months of checking my phone every few minutes, 4 months of hoping that maybe, somehow, he would change his mind, that he would miss me, that he would remember who we were before all of this, that he would come home. And in a way, he did, but not for the reasons I had convinced myself he would. Not to talk, not to fight, not to tell me that we could fix this, but to pack his things. It happened yesterday. I was in the kitchen when I heard the front door unlock. For a second, I thought I had imagined it, that maybe my exhaustion had finally gotten to me, that my mind was playing tricks on me again, feeding me false hope the same way it had for the last 4 months. But then I heard it. Footsteps. Real, solid. And for the first time in months, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe he had finally come back to talk, to let me explain, to tell me that he still loved me enough to try. So I ran to the hallway, heart pounding, hands shaking, every fiber of my being ready to fight for him. But the second I saw his face, I knew. This wasn't a homecoming, it was a goodbye. Parker didn't look at me when he walked past. He didn't say my name, didn't stop, didn't hesitate, just went straight to the bedroom like he had only come back for an errand, like this was just another task on his list. And suddenly I was panicking, because I recognized that look on his face. It was the same look he had the night he left, calm, collected, empty, the kind of look that told me there was nothing I could do. And that's when it hit me. I had waited too long. I followed him into the bedroom, watching in silence as he grabbed his suitcase from the closet, as he started packing the life we had built together into neat little piles, his shirts, his shoes, his books from the bedside table, all the things that had made this house feel like a home. And I lost it. I broke. For the first time since this all started, I really, truly broke. I grabbed his arm, begged him to stop, told him that I was sorry, that I was wrong, that I would do anything to fix this. And for the first time in my life, I meant it, because this wasn't about winning anymore. This wasn't about who was right or who was wrong. This wasn't about pride or control or refusing to bow. This was Parker, the man who had loved me more than anyone else ever had. The man I had pushed away over and over again, convinced that he would always stay. And now, I was watching him walk out of my life for good, and I couldn't handle it. He didn't react at first, didn't pull away, didn't yell at me, didn't tell me I was too late, even though we both knew that I was. He just stood there, like he was giving me one last chance, one last opportunity to say something real. And for a second, I thought maybe he was waiting for me to prove him wrong. But then, after what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. And what he said, it broke me in a way I didn't even know was possible. He told me he had waited, that he had waited for me to fight for him, to break my own rules, to prove that he mattered. He had given me a chance to prove that I loved him more than I cared about my pride. But I never did. And then he walked away, without looking back, without hesitation, without giving me the chance to stop him. And for the first time in my life, I understood. I had spent so long believing that love was about power, that whoever cared less won, that if I ever let my guard down, if I ever let myself be vulnerable, if I ever let someone know how much I needed them, I would lose. But I was wrong. Because love isn't about winning. Love is about fighting. Love is about choosing someone every single day, even when it's hard. Love is about knowing when to put your pride aside, and I never did. I waited too long. And now, I have to live with the fact that I destroyed the best thing I ever had.